Assalamu alaikum ji. Welcome to your e-class for business studies. As always, we'll start with reinforcement of the rules. You already know and you're familiar that you have to keep your mic and camera switched off till last. You know it that all your questions and queries will be answered towards the end of the session. If you need any additional help or explanation after the session, you can either send an email to the given email address, or you need to consult your Google Classroom and you'll get your answers. So today we'll be covering chapter 11 on market research. As you understand, market research is organizing the business data so that you can, as a manager, as a marketing manager, you can take informed decisions. And I'm sure you'll be able to comprehend and relate to it, that for a business it is imperative to be able to take informed decisions instead of operating on guesswork or guesstimations or estimations. So, market research helps you in organizing the available data in a presentable, informative way so that it can facilitate the decision making. Today's learning objectives include comprehending role of market research, understanding the business approach being product oriented or market oriented, analyzing methods of market research, and then whatever the analysis or the data that you've collected and the data that you have created into information, you need to be able to present it in a way that it is useful and usable, facilitating the decision making. So we move ahead with defining, rather classifying, how businesses are categorized into being product oriented or marketing oriented. That's market oriented. So a product oriented firm has its primary focus on its products. That is, it wants to build the product that it feels it is good at. That is, they focus at creating a product and then later on creating the demand for the product, focusing at their marketing activities. So one of the examples is, the most commonly known Apple brand, and we know the technology-based products of Apple or by Apple have created their own positioning and niche and rather prompted the technology business in a particular way. So they designed the product and they till date keep focusing at enhancing the product skill set or the features of the product and then use marketing to actually promote and attract the potential customers. By contrast, a market-oriented company is one that organizes its activities, products, and services around the wants and needs of its customers. So what they want to do is they want to determine the requirements and the expectations of the potential customers, the targeted segments, and then create the product with the features that would meet the expectations of the potential or the targeted segment. There are many brands and companies that fall into this category. One of the most commonly known, and you might be even experiencing or using the products, is Nike. So Nike becomes market oriented, whereas Apple is an example of being a product oriented company. And when you look at both these companies, remember, they're not just only focusing at the product or the market. they're rather focusing, their prime focus becomes the product or the market orientation. Henceforth, the product orientation or the market orientation specifies the approach of a company. A market oriented company will actively working on knowing the changing trends in the market, going ahead with the fashions or the cyclical changes in the market, and then studying the customer's expectations and designing products accordingly. Whereas a product oriented company will keep enhancing the features of the product so that it becomes more attractive to the targeted customers, to the potential customers. And this means they'll have to focus on the skills and the knowledge that can support development of the product for making it more successful. Both the product oriented and the market oriented companies need to take informed decisions, need to collect the data from the market, and market research helps them in achieving this pursuit. So, market research involves collecting, organizing, analyzing, and communicating information that can be used in order to make an informed decision. Here, it is imperative to take a pause and understand what this information is. In our daily, regular life, we keep interchanging the two words, data and information. And we feel that data and information is one and the same thing. But remember here, when you're dealing with market research and you're officially working on defining the informations required for making informed decision making, you need to be able to comprehend this distinctiveness between the two terms, that is, data and information. Data is the basic facts and figures, which might not mean anything to you unless it's put in the form, it's put in the context where it becomes useful for any stakeholder or the decision maker. Unless the data that you've collected, unless the facts and figures available to you or collected by you, organized by you, are analyzed and put into some context, some relevance for communicating and for sharing or facilitating the informed decision making at different levels in an organization, that raw data does not make any sense. For example, if I say that there are 28 people in your class, this tells you that there are 28 people in the class. That's about it. It does not help in comprehending that are these 28 people achieving a type of grade? Do these 28 people have the similar set of understanding? Are these 28 people of the same age? Do these 28 people have their distinctive characteristics? Now, do these 28 people in a class pay the same fee bill? And so on and so forth. So the data available to your school management is used in a context, in correlation, and once it's put together, the class, the section that you are in, the subjects you're taking, only then your fee bill is generated. So this raw data which is placed, which is available, once it is put in a context, in relation, only then it becomes an information. So from now on, when you're using these two words, that is data and information, I'm hoping that you should be able to remember the difference and use that accordingly. So market research is the systematic design, collection, analysis, and reporting of data and findings relevant to a specific market situation or something generic in nature. So, market research helps in addressing specific problems or opportunities, or it could be used as a tool, as a regular feature for facilitating informed decision making. And remember one important thing: systematic design, which means it is not the random or haphazard collection of data that can help in taking informed decisions. It's the systematic, objectively organized, and planned collection of data that could be analyzed and reported and presented in a form of a report that could facilitate an informed decision making process. Having defined market research in two different ways, we can now further simplify by breaking it down into different components. So, the market research is the systematic and objective way of identification, which is the need analysis, identifying the need, defining the purpose, defining the objective. Collection, obviously, the collection of the data, facts and figures. Analysis, understanding the correlation and relationship of different components of this data. Dissemination, which is sharing of information. Now, the way you share information within the organization in different departments would require you to present it in a way that they can use it for their own purpose. For example, if you want to talk to salespeople about some information and feedback that you've got, so you need to highlight to them that what part of information would they need to use from your market research that would facilitate them and highlight to them that the demand of a certain type of product or brand in a certain area in the market is higher at that particular time. For example, many companies have products that have expiry dates. For example, if an ice cream manufacturer has an expiry date on ice cream and they get to know that, they have to use it in a certain stipulated time, otherwise the product will reach its expiry date. So if you have that information and if you share it with the sales and you tell them that they could give special offers or buy one get one free or maybe certain percentage off or maybe they can do the bulk selling, it will help them in achieving their sales target. Whereas the similar kind of information might not be required in the operations management side or for the accounts. So it is very imperative that the dissemination of the information is directly correlated with the use of the information. And that would determine how you should present a certain type of data to a specific or a particular type of department. For the purpose of improving decision making related to the identification and solution of either the problems and opportunities in marketing, you need to follow these steps for organizing your information to be able to get benefit from it. So while we are talking about marketing, market research, it is very important and pertinent to be able to understand how is a market defined. Market is any place where buyers and sellers meet to trade products. And with the recent technological advancements, the any place means literally any place, which could even be an online space, might not be a physical place. So, any place where you have buyers and sellers ready to trade products or services becomes your market. And recently, we all understand that e-commerce is on the grow, which actually means the cyberspace becomes a marketplace. So you have to collect information and deal with information for facilitating a company to take up decision related to their e-commerce. which means you would need to use the latest medium of communication. So, market could be a physical marketplace or a virtual marketplace. Having defined market, market research, being able to understand what is marketing, thus define the role of market research in an organization, in a business. How can market research help a business? Market research helps a business in making informed decisions. Test product or service. Stay competitive. It helps in reducing risks. It facilitates in increasing sales. It enhances the customer services because it is the feedback and the interaction that helps businesses to organize and respond accordingly to the needs and growing expectations of the potential customers. How does it facilitate making informed decisions? It helps in answering all the W's, which is who, when, where, why, what, to whom. Market research helps a business to determine what to sell, to whom to sell, where to sell, what price to sell at, how to promote to sell. So, this means anything related to sales. Market research helps in making informed decisions. Let's take a pause for a couple of seconds and think about a company which exists in the world or around us without making any sales. Let's think. Okay, and I'm sure your answer is in negative. There is no company that can exist without making sales. Everyone in the business has to make sales. Whether you are a social enterprise or your commercial enterprise, every business has to sell to be able to survive and sustain, and then become profitable, grow and be successful, become the lead, become a multinational, and so on and so forth. So, market research helps businesses in taking informed decisions. Testing products or services is one thing where obviously market research helps in saving you your most important resource, that's money. So, if you remember or if you recall your experience at a place like Baskin Robbins, from the multiple available flavors, you have the opportunity of testing many before making your selection of buying. So this means taste testing or testing the product or service helps businesses not just in making sales but also saving their resources. The, I'm sure it's a common sense thing that you could comprehend that instead of investing into developing, designing, producing, marketing a product, and then finding it out that there is no need or the potential customers don't like your product, wasting your money, a chunk of money. You would rather want to do a test trial before making all these investments. So, it helps you in testing the products, evolving the product, and then responding or helping the customer satisfy their needs. Market research helps in monitoring the competition. It helps you in staying competitive. You could gather the information from the market about your competition, how the competition is responding or growing or maintaining their market share. And this could help you improvise on your strategies or keep following the strategies that are becoming successful, that are bringing you results, and stay abreast with the competition. So, market research helps companies in monitoring their businesses, in monitoring their competition, in responding to the needs of the and the trends in the market. Market research helps in reducing the risks. You could have all your decisions vetted or most of your decisions tested and evaluated before implementing in the market, which actually means you could save on your finances. You could save on one of your most important resources, that's money. So, to avoid costly mistakes, ensuring business survival, market research helps you in understanding the market requirements better. It's the information, and in today's technologically driven days, businesses build their comparative advantages through the data available to them based on the interactions, based on finding about the customers' likes or dislikes, the feedback of the customers. So, in a way, market research facilitates reducing risks in business. It's generally said the higher the risk is, the better the returns are. But the companies do not take the risks blindly. They always want to mitigate the risks, they always want to minimize their risks, and market research facilitates in achieving that. Increasing sales, we've been always discussing it, that one of the prime objectives of all businesses is to be able to achieve the growth objectives, and it is the growth objectives that lead to the enhanced and increased profitability of the business. So, market research can help you act and respond in a more informed way in the market vis-a-vis the competition, the changing seasonal trends, the fashion, the expectations of your targeted segments, so on and so forth. So, market research facilitates sales management and sales promotion as well. Enhance customer service. You know it, we all know it. All businesses have to be customer centric to be able to sustain their market share. And we have discussed in the previous session market share versus the customer loyalty, or market share based on customer loyalty. So, to retain your customer loyalty, you have to be able to respond to the customer's needs. You need to be able to be trustworthy and retain the confidence of your customers. And market research helps you in maintaining that through customer feedback. And if you recall, every time you dine out at a restaurant, most of the time you are requested to fill in the comment card, which is the feedback form, and that helps companies, that helps businesses in being able to comprehend the requirement and the expectations of the customers and to maintain and sustain and retain the standards, the quality standards they offer. So, market research helps customers, help businesses in enhancing and making their customer service better. While we have discussed the importance of market research and how market research helps businesses, it is important to be able to classify the type of market research. It could be qualitative or it could be quantitative. Qualitative, obviously, directly driven from the word quality, which actually means you could talk about in depth analysis, you could be subjective, you could use this method where the sample size is small. You use this method where you want to understand a certain phenomena, where you want to understand a certain behavior, where you want to build onto the social interactions, where you want to comprehend and interpret the social requirements. This is more exploratory in nature. Whereas, on the other hand, quantitative analysis is based and driven through quantity. It is a more objective method. It actually determines the quantity instead of how and why. It talks about how many and how much. So this means this is directly related, or this is directly applicable where the sample size is large and you need to have the representation of the entire population. This is based on quantity and quantitative analysis where you want to make future predictions that X amount is using this and this means the demand is going to increase that way. Research methodology is usually conclusive. For a quantitative analysis, you want to usually use a survey which is not open ended questions based, which is more like closed ended questions based. So these are the two types of market research. You could have a blend of it also, or you could just have, once you want an in depth analysis and you have a lot of time, you focus on the qualitative analysis more than the quantitative. Simultaneously, as we discuss the type, we need to know the methods of market research. Market research is usually classified into following two different methods: primary research and the secondary research. As from the labels it becomes evident, primary research is the first hand information, and whereas the secondary research is the second hand information. Primary research is the field research, secondary research is the desk research. So in primary research, it is actually self conducted, whereas in the secondary research, it is already conducted a survey or compiled report and you use it for your own, for meeting your own objectives. So you understand the primary research is the first hand information, and you can now, on the common sense basis, comprehend that an information that you're collecting yourself or information that is collected by your friend and then shared by with you, the difference or the distinctiveness that could be possible through such information collection. Similarly, same kind of differentiation is applied once companies use primary research or the secondary research. Companies follow a combination of both because the selection of research method is directly correlated to the objective of the research, the time frame available to you, the budget available to you. So on the basis of these things, either of the two are selected or maybe a combination of the two types of methods is selected by the companies. So as we've already said, primary research is the field research method. In this, following this approach, the researchers collect the data directly. And for collecting the data directly, they have to either conduct the interviews or follow the observations method or maybe do surveys, online surveys, or focus groups. These are the few ways of conducting primary research. So primary research process is classified into different steps, mainly 6 or 7 steps, and defining the purpose of the research is the most important and the first step in the primary research process. You need to be able to define the objective of your research, and that will help you to move to the next level, that is identifying or selecting the most suitable method of research. That whether you follow interviews, whether you followed questionnaire filling, whether you go online and do an online survey, whether you organize some focus groups, whether you work out a combination of it, and what percentage you allocate to what type of tool for conducting the primary research. So this depends on defining the objective of the research. This third important steps, and it plays a very imperative role in the successfulness of your research. It is determining the sample. Sampling is a very important step during a primary research process. You need to be able to cover the population that you were targeting in the sample. And through the purpose of, that is, defining the objective of your research and defining the method of your research, only then you should be able to determine the sample and how you're going to conduct the research for that particular sample. Conducting the research is mainly the field work, and it has its own challenging. Remember, people are not ready to give you their time just like that, just on your call. Even if you were doing a mall intercept activity and you want to collect some data in a shopping mall where people are there for their leisure time and enjoying the shopping, even there you will not find people very willing to take out a minute or 2 or 5 minutes out of their time to respond to the questionnaires. So, conducting the research is where the researchers might find the most challenges. Once you've got the data collected, once you've conducted the research, once you've collected all the data, it only would make sense to you in spending all this time and resources if you're able to collate the data and analyze the results. So this means the fifth step, that is analyzing the collected data and then transforming the data into information, into worthwhile information, is important, and it needs expertise, it needs understanding, it needs that you should be able to identify the relation of different elements and variables on which you have collected the data. Once you've been able to do that, collate and analyze, that you have to compile the report of the findings, because then you need to disseminate this information. And the dissemination of the information would require you placing that information in different ways for different target audiences within the organization. Now, if you are sending some information to the accounts department, and if you're sending the similar information to the operations managers or the production managers, so it might not be as good as you assume it to be. You need to be able to sift through the collated data and share the relevant information to the relevant and specific departments. So this requires a good analytical and communication skills here. After defining the process of primary research, there are different methods and tools being used for primary research. Questionnaires, online surveys, interviews, focus groups are the prime tools for conducting primary research. What is a questionnaire? I'm sure you're familiar. Questionnaire is a research instrument that consists of a set of questions or other type of prompts that aims to collect information from a respondent. Uh, I'm sure one of the most commonly seen or used method of collecting information. So, while you're designing a questionnaire, I'm sure you understand that you need to determine that it should not be very long, it should not be very short, it should cover all the aspects that you want to collect the data for, it should match up your objective, it should not talk irrelevant. The language used while designing a questionnaire should be easy enough for somebody to be able to comprehend and then respond. The vocabulary that you use should not be very difficult. It should not put people in an odd situation. The questions should not prompt people to become biased. So there are many aspects in being able to design a questionnaire, and usually a good questionnaire is considered to be of 15 or 20 questions maximum, tops. More than that, you lose the interest of your respondent because it starts giving the impression it's very long. Nobody wants to read long things. It should be able to help you qual analyze the data that you get. Your questions could be quantitative, your questions could be qualitative, and you need to keep a composition of a reasonably well balanced composition of percentage of quantitative and qualitative information that you want to collect through the questionnaires. These questionnaires can be filled through the physical interactions, or these questionnaires could be sent to the respondents, requesting them to send them back or mail them back. You could use technology's help to get the questionnaires filled. And for getting the technology's help to get the questionnaires filled means you could do an online survey. So you could structure a questionnaire and you could put it on your website, or you could use social media tools to have it circulated amongst your targeted audience, and you could collect the information on basis of that. The information collected can automatically go into a database, and then different analysis could be done on the data. This means you would need to have expertise relevant to analyzing the data, to organizing the data. So you would need to be probably computer savvy to be able to do that. Sometimes businesses hire market research companies to do these tasks for them so that they get the best possible people to conduct these. Now, all these methods have their pros and cons. For example, on online surveys, conducting online surveys might sound more economical, less expensive than getting the questionnaires filled in physically, going around in the marketplace, engaging more people for doing that. But one of the downsides on online services, people might not take you seriously. They might tend to ignore your emails or your requests, and they might not find it attractive enough. They might not have interest in filling down your questionnaire. They might already be busy online doing their things on internet, and they might not be ready to spend a small little time in responding to your survey. And sometimes for online surveys, the internet speed or a technical glitch or a technical hiccup can lead to you know creating some problem in data collection. So you, as companies, as I already said, that the companies sometimes hire the market researchers or market research companies to conduct their research. It becomes imperative to actually select the percentage of using different methods so that you get all the relevant information for making an informed decision. During your primary research, you could conduct interviews, and from the word interviews itself, you understand this is like discussing 101, talking 101, having 101 conversation. You need to be able to structure your conversation because you cannot just keep asking random questions. You could lose the interest of your interviewee. You need to plan and schedule time for the interview. It takes a little longer than getting a questionnaire filled. This requires in depth discussion. The interviewer should be able to comprehend and present the views or the data shared by the interviewee in the right context so that the analysis part and the result part could be relevant. So it is very important to be able to focus on the language being used, on the understanding of the interviewer and the interviewee about the research. So likewise, like other methods of primary research, this one has its advantages and some drawbacks as well. One of the most important is for conducting these interviews, you have to have a one-on-one conversation, and post this COVID-19 scenario, we all are become tech savvy, and we all are familiar with using online resources or interacting online. And otherwise, initially earlier, it was not as openly received as it is now become acceptable, that instead of going and meeting or conducting an interview and being physically present somewhere with somebody, you could just now connect, schedule, and do an online meetup like we keep doing. So it has advantages, it has some disadvantages as well, some drawbacks. So you need to determine that which method you want to use for data collection. Focus groups. Focus groups is one of a very interesting way of data collection. Focus group, as from the label itself, is self-exploratory. It is a group that is focusing on discussing either a problem or an opportunity, reviewing a new product, and the researcher determines the responses and the reactions. So, a focus group is a diversified group of people, and these sit together and they have a discussion on a specific point, which I already said could be a new product, it could be a new campaign being launched, it could be a test run of the new communication strategy by a company. For example, companies like multinationals or FMCG brands like maybe Coke or Pepsi or maybe Nestle, or you could talk about Dalda, or you could classify Sufi, or you could classify Seasons cooking oil. All these companies, while they are spending a large amount of money on advertising, so they sometimes conduct these focus groups to share the concepts, or to share the communication strategies and get the feedback that how people are looking at seeing the new advertisement and what impacts are being created or what impacts could be created. So before spending and then finding it out, they do it before it, so that now the budget allocated could get the best possible results. So focus groups are an interesting way, but they are expensive and they are time consuming to conduct. It is, you understand it, it's not easy to have a group of people identifying and scheduling and making themselves available for such meetings at any common point. Everybody follows their own schedule. So focus groups is a lengthier and an expensive way of collecting data, though it does talk about and it does help in getting the diversified feedback or the responses during this guided discussion. But again, it's not easy to schedule a focus group with your best possible sample, obviously, owing to people following their own schedule. Again, with all these drawbacks, focus groups are commonly used because the purpose that they fulfill, and the companies who can afford this kind of data collection has better results coming to them for their primary research. Now, as we kept discussing sampling and the sample size, and if you recall, in the process of primary research, while identifying the different steps, it was said that sampling becomes a very important and imperative activity. So, what is a sample? A sample is a group of people, objects, or items that are taken from a larger population for measurement or data collection. The sample should be representative of the population to ensure that we can generalize the findings from the research sample to the population as a whole. For example, let's take a very basic example. Let's see if your canteen wants to add a new menu and they want to base it on their potential customers, that's you, their needs or their likings or their preferences, it might not be easy for them to talk to each and every student and find out about their interest, log down that data, collect that data, then collate that data, and then build their analysis and then build accordingly. And then this, I'm sure you can understand. It's not easy, but what they can do is the easier method could be okay, C1, C2, H1, H2, or pre C1. Let's take a number of students from each year. Let's talk to them and let's find out. Or another way of designing the sample could be, let's find out the frequent visitors to the canteen in a week's time. And out of them, at random, let's select the one who spends, let's say, 200 rupees at the canteen in a day. That could be one way of doing it. Or maybe if there is a specified or already predetermined menu that they want to work on, so maybe they can decide that, okay, let's decide somebody who's spending on buying similar sort of products, and that forms the sample. Now the sample should represent the whole population. The sample should be manageable version of the larger group. Sample is a subset of a larger population. So there are two ways of sampling. One is random sampling, which is the probability-based sampling. One is quota sampling. In probability-based sampling, out of the whole subset, everybody has the probability of being selected as the respondent. Whereas in quota sampling, you already classify your population into different segments, and then you want to pick up a number of respondents from each from each segment, so that you have the true representation of the total population. So sampling is an important activity for any primary research, and it needs good understanding and expertise of being able to comprehend it, that which method are you going to implement and follow. Now, while talking about primary research, let's not come down to the secondary research, which is, as we've already said, is the desk research or the research which is based on the already existing data. This could be a research being conducted by somebody else earlier for some other reason, and you could extract the information relevant to you and you could use it for your own purpose, objective. There are two types of sources of secondary research or the secondary data. One is the internal, other one is the external. And obviously, as these contrasting terms explain, internal versus external resources, you can determine Your every organization has some internal data which could come through different departments, which could come through different times of the organization, which could come through different accounting statements over the different years. And then you have different external data available, which could come through the sources like government agencies, or maybe the magazines or the newspapers, or different industrial associations, or different research companies, maybe universities and colleges who do a lot of research and collect data and make the data available. So there are many sources. Don't forget internet. In today's time, we know it that internet becomes one of our major sources of information. Anything and everything that we want to find out is Googled. So what is known to everybody, or at least what could be made available or is made available to everybody? It's the how factor. It's how you're going to use it creates the differentiation. The final step towards market research conclusion is actually the data presentation. And we all know the world has become pictorial. So we understand better when you see a picture or a graph or a diagram. It's easily comprehensible as compared to reading a paragraph or maybe reading through a table. So there are different ways and means of making your presentation attractive. Should be done it. Uh, as we are living in a very high-paced, technologically driven world, it has become imperative that the information that you want to share should be at a very quick pace. It should not take a lot of effort or time. So you could have different types of graphs. You could have pie charts, you could have bar charts. Those of you who are studying mathematics, I'm sure you should be able to relate to it. Making graphs, it becomes easier. Using different colors, since it's your computers facilitate it, it becomes easier to actually present your data and make it look more attractive, more comprehensible. So, data presentation is important. And while we are talking about data presentation, in market research, you have to pay special attention to the data accuracy as well. And there could be certain points or there could be certain challenges during the research process where your data accuracy could be challenged, or if not paid attention to, could be compromised. So during the research process, maintaining the sanctity of accuracy of data is very important. Only then it leads and it fulfills the requirement of facilitating informed decision making. With this, we come to your weekly assignment. The details of this assignment you'll have available on your Google Classroom. But this assignment is related to research planning and questionnaire designing, which you will be doing. And we've just discussed that example already with you. That is, if your canteen has to introduce a new menu, how should they plan the research and design the questionnaire? So you will find the details about it in your Google class. Having said, briefly, we conclude today's session. Good luck